Hello once again, everybody, and thank you for joining me here on this Tuesday, December 15th edition of ATS Radio. I'm your host, Adam Burke. I'll be joined today by Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. We're talking about all things Week 15 in the NFL, probably some more surprises along the way here on today's show. Over at ATS.io, picks, predictions, previews, all kinds of breakdowns for the college basketball season, the college football season, with conference championship games here this weekend, and then also a bunch of coverage of Week 15 in the NFL. The NBA starts a week from tonight, so we'll be ramping up our NBA coverage over at the website as well. NHL not that far behind. UFC, another event here this week. Golf will be back after the new year, so we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about over at ATS.io for this week and in upcoming weeks as well. Make sure you download the ATS app, which you can find in the Google Play Store, in the Apple Store, or over at ATS.io. It's a bet tracker. It's an odds screen, full article integration from the website, then also a premium model where you can buy monthly or weekly subscriptions and get those analytics-driven picks in the ATS app. A pretty low cost for that. So we encourage you to download the app and make sure that you check that out. And, of course, if you miss anything here on ATS Radio, you can find recaps of previous shows over at the website, or you can just simply subscribe to ATS Radio on Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, wherever you stream and download your podcast content. With that, we bring on today's guest. That is Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. And, Brian, how's it going today, man?
All right, man, it's going good. We got quite a day. I love doing this thing with you. You're going to come on Sports Grid Radio, Sportsbook Radio on Sports Grid Radio later today at 2 Eastern. So we'll be a lot of us together here in the morning, and I want to thank you. Adam did me a solid. We don't actually, I should be looking for a sponsor. I get the Weather Channel to sponsor all these things I do because I do 90% of the work I do from home. I do on the patio, and throughout the course of the year, you know, I could be sitting out here in a bathing suit doing all my stuff. And today it's like in the low 40s in Vegas, which feels like 8. And I'm full disclosure, I'm a big baby and I'm bundled up and, look like I could be doing this from an igloo. So Adam kindly is not doing a video segment today, but full disclosure, I'm a big baby because nobody needs to see this.
Yeah, well, I can see it. You're rocking the pullover fleece there. You got
brother, let me tell you.
You got your coffee trying to stay warm. I don't know, maybe you can plug a hot plate into your laptop or something and keep your coffee warm. But
it's the funny thing is, I mean, you're sitting there like not today, and the weather's good in Cleveland, but we do these things, and you got to go out and shovel snow, and you're looking at me going, "Look at this character."
Weather's good. Weather won't be good here until April. But yeah, I'm in my house.
What was with the field last night? It was like a skating rink.
I have no idea. I've never really seen anything like that before in a Browns game. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was the way they kind of manicured the grass, maybe trying to slow Lamar Jackson down or something. Obviously, it didn't work. They should
there you go.
Do a better job of that. But
just put a little 10W40 over the field.
What a game last night.
Unbelievable.
And obviously
in the beat, Brad, everybody will talk about the beat, but we'll get into that. But the game itself.
The thing that's always so funny about bad beats like that is usually somebody can sit there and say, well, you should have gotten the best of the number and you wouldn't have had to worry about it. And every Browns number lost in that one unless you teased them for whatever reason.
Let me tell you why it shouldn't have happened. All right. I'll tell you a story. You in the mood for a story?
Sure, why
not? Years and years and years ago, the Bills were playing the Titans in the playoffs. So we're at a buddy's house. We got a house party going on. Rob Johnson was the quarterback, and the Bills started at like the 8-yard line the entire first half. I mean, they could have won the Super Bowl. Their defense was so good. And they just couldn't get the field position. They had to play it safe and secure, and the defense held them in the game. They were only down a few points. So at halftime at his house party, we're clowning around about being superstitious. So I said, okay, we made a thing of it. So my buddy had a statue, some goofy statue, and he went up and changed his outfit or whatever. So when he came down, I said, okay, he's right. Let's play this superstitious card. everybody pick your spot. You got to stay there. I said, if the Bills return the second half kickoff beyond the 30, they're winning this game. Well, they got to the 35 on the kick return. Everybody's like, yes. So, okay, everybody stay in your same spots. So this game that goes the whole thing, Rob Johnson drives them down. Christie kicks the field goal. The Bills win the game with 9 seconds to go. Right? Everybody did the thing. So I'm telling the story. I said, let's do this. So then this guy walks up to me who I didn't know was at the thing, and he comes up to me and he goes, yeah, he goes, I'm like that too. He goes, I'm a Red Sox fan. He goes, in 86, he said, I watched the Red Sox win Game 5 on a Watchman in the bathroom. He said, and they won. So he said, so I watched all of Game 6 in the bathroom with the Watchman. He said, but they got to the 9th inning. He said, I've waited all these years for the Red Sox to win. I can't not see it in color. So he left the bathroom in the 9th inning to watch the end of the game that Bill Buckner played. And I'm like, wait, are you a black cloud? So sure enough, the Bills win the game. And then the Music City Miracle and Dyson's running, or whatever, Kevin Dyson, right? He's running down the sideline on the Music City Miracle. And I look, and this jackass is standing next to me, who had been sitting over at this, for the whole game. And now he's over by the bar with me. And I looked at him. I said, I don't know you from Adam. I said, but you are the biggest black cloud in the world. And then the game last night, I'm the predictor of disasters, the Hail Murray. I'm watching with my wife. I go, and I'm explaining to her, I said, nobody ever defends. I don't understand the NFL. These coaches are so stupid. When a team has no timeouts, why won't you put 3 defenders in 10-yard increments on the sideline? And then line the goal line with guys. But defend the sideline. How many times do you see them give them the quick 3-second, 10-yard out, 10-yard out, 10-yard out, and then the guy gets the field goal attempt? Guard the sideline, make him do the middle of the field. So I'm explaining this whole thing to my wife, and of course, they gave him the 10-yard out to get him to the point where he could throw the Hail Murray, and they won the game. And last night, I'm watching this nonsense. My wife's sitting with me again, and Lamar Jackson makes the play. This is for the bad beat people. Lamar Jackson makes the play, the pass, whatever, gets them into field goal range. They line up, and the clock's at like 11, 10, and I'm sitting there going, all right, I know what he should do. He spikes it with 7 seconds left. And I looked at my wife, and I said, he should have let it run down to 3. And then this is before the play. I said, he should have let it run down to 3. You kick the thing and go home. Because I'm always worried about the Music City Miracle. I did a high school football game. We do the game of the week on TV. I know that you didn't want this to be a fireside chat, but this is about 5 years ago. Imagine this. It's the game of the week. It's on TV, big rivalry game here in Vegas. And a kid kicks like a 40-yard field goal with 3 seconds left. Tie game. The kid is the hero of his life. In the yearbook for the rest of his life, the kid kicks the field goal, wins the game with 3 seconds left. They line up to kick, and you're going to do the line drive squib kick. So the kid does the line drive squib kick, and it hits a kid, 10 yards. Like, he's just trying to hammer it down 30, 40 yards down the field as a squib. Hits the kid and doesn't bounce off him. Hits him, and it drops. The kid falls on the ball. So now it's a high school game. There's 3 seconds left. So they got the ball at about midfield, and the quarterback goes back, roughing the passer. They get another untimed down, another personal foul, and they get the field goal to tie the game and go to overtime. Like, it's amazing. If there's a second left on the clock, it is amazing how the goofy things that can happen. That play never should have happened. Lamar Jackson should have ran that clock down to 3. Tucker Fields kicks the field goal, and you go home.
No, I absolutely agree. And great story there about that Bills game.
If I ever saw this guy, I swear to God, I'd hit him right in the Adam's apple. Before I said hello to him, I'd hit him in the throat.
I don't blame you. I mean, look, it's funny because Dave Sherapan at Sportsbook Consigliere on Twitter He was kind of going back and forth with some Browns fans and stuff. He's a Pittsburgh guy. He was kind of going back and forth with some Browns fans on Twitter yesterday, and I just replied to him, and I'm like, look, man, like I'm from Cleveland where we hope for the best and plan for the worst. And I know you know what that's like being from Buffalo. And it's just, man, it's not even that the Browns lost that game because it never really felt like it was going to be a guarantee or anything like that. But it was simply the fact that they lose the game and then also lose the push or lose the cover for anybody who waited out a 3.5 in that one or, bought the half point or whatever.
Just what do you think the money amount was? I mean, half the country's sitting on 3. So it's a push. So you get, half the country gets the miracle win and their story to tell. Half the people get their head ripped off. And then those that had the plus 3.5 are sitting there going, did that really just happen?
Well, and the thing that's nuts about that game too, and I promise we'll move on from this here in a second, but like,
well, that's what everybody's talking about.
if Trace McSorley doesn't go down, does Lamar Jackson all of a sudden come running out of the locker room? I mean, they didn't have another quarterback. No. Robert Griffin III's hurt too. So they didn't have another quarterback. They had to go Wildcat or something like that. So McSorley's down and down long enough for Lamar Jackson to run out of the locker room and then make that ridiculous 4th and 5 play. But if McSorley doesn't get hurt, I don't think Jackson comes back out, and maybe the Browns win that game.
You're right. And by the way, I feel bad for McSorley because he looked good. He really did look good. He threw a pass this Marquise Brown guy. I can't believe he caught the 4th and 5 pass. He didn't drop that. But McSorley looked good. He threw a pass that Brown dropped the previous series, and he was moving them, and then he slipped and fell. But the other thing about that is that when McSorley went down, the amount of time it bought for Jackson to get out there, it wasn't like, oh, okay, he twisted an ankle and he got up and Lamar Jackson come running out. He was down and they were working on him. So he was down for a while. And then Jackson grabbed his helmet and come running out. If that was, if he just tweaked his ankle or something, I don't know that there would have been enough time for Jackson even to come back out there.
Right. And it's not like I think Baltimore still had a timeout at the time, but it's not like they would have wanted to blow it on that. I don't know if they would have called timeout if somebody would have told Harbaugh, hey, Lamar's coming back. I don't know. It was just
so it sucks for Browns fans, but the game itself, Baltimore, if they lost that game, man, I mean, they're going to be dangerous now. I mean, Jackson, I'm trying to envision this. The Cowboys blitzed him left and right, and he made plays with his feet. I thought Cleveland was pretty aggressive against him too. And I think the way to defend this guy is to rush 3 guys and just make him be a quarterback. He's gonna make his plays, but if the first guy's not getting him down. And I thought the blueprint was there to really make this guy struggle. And the Cowboys, and then again, I thought the Browns, they were sending people. They were getting a good push from their defensive line. But the other thing, though, for the Browns, they're dangerous. They're dangerous with I'd make the case Hunt's better than Chubb. I really would. And maybe it's just a flat-out coin flip. But, boy, when you can have a back of that caliber in there at all times, that's something special. And why are they – does it seem they're a better team since OBJ went out?
Because they are. I mean, Baker doesn't have to force-feed OBJ anymore. And, I mean, look, the pick by Bowser last night was an exceptional play. And Baker made the wrong read. Chubb made the right read. He knew that guy wasn't coming. He went and picked up the rusher on the other side. So he read it faster than Baker did. But, I mean, that guy made a phenomenal play. It's the first pick that Baker's thrown since targeting OBJ on his last one against Cincinnati like 5-6 games ago. The offense just hums a lot better without OBJ, without having to force the ball to him to make him happy. And to your Chubb and Hunt point, Chubb's a far better runner. Hunt's a really good receiver. I don't really love the way Hunt runs the football necessarily. I like the way Chubb runs it, but they've got a lot of creativity with those 2 guys out there, and that's
it's incredible. No, they really are. They got something going there, and what does it mean moving forward here? I think that's a couple of the games we're going to talk about is maybe you watch both of these teams this week. Like after playing in that game, what are they going to do this week? I mean, if you're talking a letdown spot, the Browns are in good shape. The Ravens got to keep winning.
Well, and that's the thing too. Last night, Peters goes down for Baltimore. He's kind of in and out of the game. Jackson with the cramping, I'm sure he'll be okay. We saw their offensive line deficiencies are there for the Ravens right now with some of the guys that they lost from last season. The Browns, Myles Garrett got banged up. Jedrick Wills was hobbling around a little bit in that game. He did come back, but he obviously wasn't 100%. Now you're on a short week. And for Baltimore here, I think it's interesting because, look, they're a 2-touchdown favorite against Jacksonville, total 46.5. Jaguars going back to Gardner Minshew, which is going to be pretty interesting for them. But Jacksonville, they haven't quit. They haven't quit on Doug Marrone. They're still playing hard. They're still a pretty competitive team for the most part. I mean, I don't know how you could possibly take Baltimore minus 14 in that game. I think it's Jacksonville or nothing, and maybe it's nothing, but I don't know how you justify taking Baltimore coming off of what they had to do on Monday night, coming off of playing on Tuesday the week before against Dallas, all the COVID stuff. I feel like Baltimore is in complete win and get the hell out of their mode this week.
Well, the crazy thing about Jacksonville, Adam, is they throw clunkers, but then they do show the ability to bounce back. And you saw it firsthand. They got stomped by the Steelers 27-23, then came back and gave the Browns all they could handle 27-25. So, Jacksonville's one of these teams like, what do I do with these guys? And you're like, have they run for the bus? I don't think they ran for the bus because Tennessee beat them 31-10. But that was Tennessee. Remember we had talked last week. I said I learned more about Tennessee in the loss to Cleveland than I would if they'd have beat Cleveland. And remember, because they were way down at the half, and they had no quit in them. They didn't have an ounce of quit in them and fought back in that game. And they just carried that second half from the Cleveland game in and just punched Jacksonville in the mouth. With the air out of the balloon, I think Jacksonville absolutely is competitive in this game.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's the only way that I could look. And again, you've got a line of 14 here with a total of 46.5. So a lower scoring expectation in this game. And, I also was not the least bit impressed with Lamar Jackson throwing the football last night. And I don't know if Jacksonville is going to have anybody that can stop him. The Browns' back seven is a mess right now, especially with some of the guys they're missing at the safety position and at corner. They have Denzel Ward and Harrison in that game last night. Maybe it goes a little bit different for them defensively. They had some penalties early on in the game. They had some just some blown assignments, missed tackles, guys just lost in space, all that kind of thing. I don't know if Baltimore plays a more structured brand or if Jacksonville plays a more structured brand of defense or anything like that next week. But also if I'm Baltimore, and I've kind of seen people talking about this a little bit with regards to Patrick Mahomes. Like, you only run the quarterback when you absolutely have to. And last night, Baltimore had to run Lamar Jackson because they were getting nothing in the passing game. Next week, I'm not getting Jackson hit a lot. I know that he kind of scrambled around against Dallas on Tuesday night, scrambled around a lot against Cleveland. He has not been running the football much this season. I don't think they want him getting hit 15 or 20 times in that game between pressures and between carries. So I think Baltimore's going to try and run the ball with Dobbins and Edwards and Ingram and all that. And I think that helps Jacksonville hang around a little bit too. So I kind of like the plus 14 on the Jags here. I don't know if I'll lock this one in for the circa or anything like that, but it is on my short list here for week 15.
I don't know what you said after you said lost in space. That brought back a fond memory. You put a smile on my face. You're too young. Did you even know there was a TV show called Lost in Space?
I've heard of it. Never seen it.
Oh, okay. You got 1965 to 1968.
In my prime, pre-COVID, I used to play a lot of bar trivia. So I know a lot of useless things in a lot of ways, but that's a show that I've never been able to tune into. All right, so the other side of the game here, Cleveland and the Giants, who now play Sunday Night Football. This one flexed into the primetime spot on NBC here. Not a big surprise. I mean, Cleveland's a team that, has kind of a lot of national attention. And, of course, the Giants in that New York, New Jersey metro area, big ratings expected for this one. The Browns, not seeing a line posted across the market here, but it looks like 3.5 or 4 was kind of the number going into last night.
3.5, 45.5.
All right, 3.5, 45.5 here. And, you know, there was an interesting point that you brought up before we started recording here today. I think is a good starting point for this game.
Well, the game gets, first of all, it's a letdown spot for Cleveland. And the Giants are still breathing. Well, not only are they still breathing, but they would own the tiebreaker. But the fact that this game gets flexed to Sunday night, now the Giants will know if Seattle beat Washington. And then that means they'll know if they win, they actually move into first place in the NFC East. They'll have the tiebreaker. I mean, not that they wouldn't be motivated with 3 weeks to go, a game back, but they would have a real bounce in their step, wouldn't you think, if Seattle beats Washington?
Yeah, I would certainly think so. I think it's definitely an angle to consider here for this game. And, you know, with the Browns, I mean, there have been a lot of people on social media and all of that already saying that, you know, this Browns season isn't about moral victories. And the team is saying that same thing here coming off of that loss. But you know what? That was the first game in a while last night where they trailed big, where things weren't really going well for them, where you kind of felt like they had the chance of getting run off the field at some points in the first half of that game. And they didn't. You know, they made adjustments. They gave up that second half touchdown on the opening possession and still found a way to be in the game, tie it late, of course, lose to future Hall of Famer Justin Tucker. But the Browns showed a lot to me in that game. And now they've got to go on a short week, go play another very important game where they have the Jets on deck and they should win that game. And if they do, they'll most likely make the playoffs. But they can remove all doubt probably this weekend with a win against the Giants. It's just, it's a spot that they're not really accustomed to. And it's a spot with a first-year head coach in Stefanski, some newer coordinators in Van Pelt and Woods that they're not necessarily accustomed to either. So I'm really interested to see how the Browns come out in the first half of this game, where, as you said, the Giants, you know, could be supremely motivated if Washington loses early on. It's not a game I'm going to bet. I can tell you that right off the top, but I'll be, you know, obviously watching, very interested to see what the Browns look like coming off of a loss that they put so much into.
Well, you know, here's the thing. You could shoot holes at who the Browns have played this year. I mean, throw out the opener. Baltimore kills everybody in the opener every year. Cincy, Washington, Dallas, when they were all horrible. Beat Indy. That's a quality win. Killed by the Steelers. Barely beat Cincy. Lost to the Raiders in a horrible weather game. Barely beat Houston. Barely beat the Eagles. Barely beat the Jags. The big win against Tennessee where they took their foot off the pedal. But then this game, you know, against a highly motivated team, they put on a show and they played well. So I think even though they lost this game, I come away with a better feeling for Cleveland that, don't worry about who they'd play. They got a shot against anybody. I mean, they've got the weapons. They can play with anybody. And like you said, you know, they're going to make the playoffs. You got the Giants, the Jets, and the Steelers. But the punch to the gut was all of a sudden with Pittsburgh losing 2 in a row, they actually had sugar plums dancing in their head that they could still win the division. And had they won that game, I mean, a realistic chance maybe to get as high. They could have maybe have gotten as high as the 2 seed. Depending on what Pittsburgh and Buffalo would do ahead of it. So now they're kind of locked in. You know, they're going to make the playoffs. You're solid. You're going to be a wild card team. I kind of think they know their fate. And I think this is a horrible spot for them. I really do. It's an out-of-conference game. And if they lose it, it's not going to be the end of the world. And then they come back and they step on the Jets next week, and they've secured a spot in the playoffs. But it's just a bad spot. It really is. Now, who's the better team? There's no question who the better team is. But the Giants are literally a desperate team. It's a playoff game for the Giants. Plus, throwing this thing on Sunday night is also a really bad thing for Cleveland. if that's just a day game, but the fact that the Giants will know what happened with Washington, I mean, honestly, either way, Adam, they're gonna know. They're going, oh my God, Washington upset Seattle. Either way, it's a playoff game for the Giants, and the fact that it got moved to the night, I don't think helps Cleveland's case at all. I would say this to you: if everybody starts thinking that way during the week, threes are going to surface, I think. So if you like the Giants, again, we always talk about this on this podcast. Who you bet is you want the right side. I hate the word value. There's no value in ripping up a yeah, I got the bet. I had value. Yeah, did you win? No. And so what does that word mean? It drives me insane. But when you bet, sometimes you just saw it on the Browns game. It was 3, and at the tail end it was 3.5. Game sitting on 3. Well, I got a push out of the deal. Until the stupid play. So when you bet matters. So if you like the Giants, you're nuts not to bet them now, because if 3 surface, you're going to go, damn, I could have had the hook.
The only thing I guess I would argue is that also too, the Browns are going to have a lot more clarity on the AFC playoff picture as well. So, they'll kind of know sort of like where a team like Vegas stands, where Indianapolis stands, stuff like that. So they'll have an idea of that themselves, which, could kind of dictate maybe how they show in this game. I don't know. The one thing I will say in the Browns' favor is that, as we all saw on display last night, as we've seen throughout most of the season, their defense is not great. Their defense is actually pretty below average in a lot of ways. So you've got Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward's a pretty good player. Other than that, and Olivier Vernon, they don't really have a ton to work with. Baltimore can exploit that. I don't know if the Giants and Daniel Jones can. So that would be the one saving grace, I think, for Cleveland here, is that I think their offense is good enough to score on anybody. Their defense will struggle against better offenses, but can shut down some of the lesser offenses. So maybe that's something that helps Cleveland a little bit here in this one. But I think there are better betting opportunities on the board.
Yeah, there are. By the way, I was thinking of you. I love you, bud, but I'm like, I watch all these games, and I don't know why, just because you like to argue with me. I watch all these games, and I'm always thinking of you. When the Browns go for 2, I go, here we go with this analytics crap.
It was the right call.
Oh, come on. Then, okay, Hunt, you go in the end zone. I'll throw it off your shoulder pads to the guy who's 7 yards behind you. This analytics nonsense. Oh, for the love of God.
It's not nonsense. I mean, it's backed by math. It's statistically relevant. I mean, it was the right call, and they were winning that game at one point because of going for 2. So,
Yeah, I know. But if what should have happened is Hunt doesn't catch the ball, now you're sitting there and that's a 2-possession game, and we're not looking at the greatest Monday night finish we've seen in a decade.
Well, I mean, they were still only down 8 if they didn't get the 2. So
let's go for 2.
Well, all right. I know you don't like it. The math is out there. The math.
Okay, all right. Then let me ask you this: this is a sports betting thing. Are key numbers anymore?
I mean, there's been a pretty big shift. I mean, it was written about.
We get the missed extra points that are a thing. Yep. I mean, the Parkey kid. I mean, he needed a diaper kicking that last extra point. But I mean, so we get missed extra points. And then we get these guys that cavalierly out of nowhere go, some guy with Coke bottle glasses, in a boiler room in Toledo says I should go for 2 here.
5 has become a much more important number in the NFL than it ever was before. That's one that's definitely, because we used to talk about games between 4 and 6 being in the dead zone. Now games land on 5 with, a much higher level of frequency than they ever used to. So, yeah, key numbers are definitely changing. I mean, you still want to be on the right side of 3 and 7, but, getting 5.5 instead of 5 is more important than it used to be. Getting 4.5 instead of -5, that's more important than it used to be. So there are more numbers that are getting involved. I think 7 has gone down a little bit in terms of how key a number that is. But I think 3 is still pretty important, but 4, 5, 6, things like that, they're kind of popping up a little bit more here as teams are embracing the analytics more. And of course, as extra points are being missed with much higher frequency.
Oh, by the way, just throw this out real quick. All things with how that ended, it just got washed away. But you're a Browns guy. How helpless of a feeling it was. It was a 55-yard kick with Tucker. I mean, literally, aren't you just sitting there going like, there ain't no way he's missing this. I mean, that's like an extra point for him. How clutch is that guy?
Oh yeah. It's like hoping Mariano Rivera blew a save. Like It's just, that thing was dead center and good from 70 on a day where the wind was not as bad as they forecasted it to be. But, I know from experience being down there that kicking into the dog pound end it cannot be any fun. I've seen.
It's Cleveland. It's a 55-yarder in Cleveland.
Oh, yeah. And he stuck it from 70.
Well, if you think about it, and I'm old enough, you're getting old. When you're watching guys, do you ever find yourself taking the time? Like I was there for the Bills 4-year run out there every day covering the team. And you're sitting there and you're going, oh, that's a Hall of Famer. That's a Hall of Famer. That's a Hall of Famer. And you're watching these games. And I'm telling you right now, they're this weekend alone, there are 3 guys we're watching, 3 sure shot first ballot Hall of Famers we're watching right now. And not counting quarterbacks. We know about Breeze and Rodgers and Brady, but not counting quarterbacks. Surefire first ballot Hall of Famers. Aaron Donald's on his way to being one of the greatest defensive linemen ever. Tucker, we saw that last night. Kicker, probably not first ballot, but he's a Hall of Famer. And I'm telling you, with each passing week, Travis Kelce is unbelievable. You cannot cover this guy. And run after the catch is remarkable with this guy. He's not like a reindeer. He's just a bulldozer with speed and moves. But I think Kelce could be a first ballot Hall of Famer when this is all said and done. The numbers this guy's putting up are just stupid.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're ridiculous. And I think more tight ends have a better shot as we go forward here with how much teams are using the tight end. Tucker, I was actually texting with my boss throughout the game. I'm like, this guy's a Hall of Famer. Like he's 31 years old. He's already a Hall of Famer. Dude's 92% lifetime on field goals.
No, honestly, from the kicker's perspective, Vinatieri will get in, and then I think Tucker would, when his days are done, would get in. That'd be it. Those 2.
All right, let's run through a few more games here before we sign off for today's show. And the Thursday night game, Vegas and the Chargers, 3 with extra juice or 3.5, 53 the total. Vegas, home favorite, gotta have it game. But you don't see any must-win inflation put into this number. Vegas absolutely has to win this game. This line is not shaded. You're not paying a premium. None of that. I think you look at what Vegas has done the last 3 weeks here, and the market is genuinely concerned about where this team sits right now.
Yeah, and how can you, in good conscience, step up to the plate and play these guys under the total? Their secondary, when healthy, gives up big plays. They can't stop the run. And then they were mangled. I know that was one of the games we did a video last week. We talked about it on the podcast. That was a gift. The over in the game with Indy. Rivers will shred them. And the Raiders can score. But, the other thing, Derek Carr, back end of the season, Adam, he's making great plays, but he's also having, the brain cramp or 2 that's like not just a turnover, it's instant points. So that's a bit troublesome. Now you change the defensive coordinator, fire him, and Marinelli knows what he's doing. And maybe he could have an impact on these guys in the home stretch. But literally, he's going to have 2 practices to change things up against the Chargers. And then, listen, the Chargers are coming in here. This whole season was about developing the kid, and Herbert's been terrific. And honestly, they should have won how many more games than they did? Just gut-wrenching loss after gut-wrenching loss. But they found a way to win a close game against Atlanta. So, the Chargers probably coming in here feeling, pretty good about themselves. The Raiders, don't kid yourself, though. The Raiders, they beat the Chiefs, and they went right down to the wire with them. The Raiders can play with anybody. It's just you can't trust them. The one thing I think you can trust is they can score, but they can't stop anybody. So, to me, I'm looking at the point or going over the total.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think to some degree the Chargers have been hurt a little bit because SoFi Stadium's playing surface is very slow. It's a plodding type of track. We've actually seen totals kind of be shaded down a little bit or bet down in the market in Chargers and Rams home games this year with that playing surface in mind. That will not be the case at Allegiant Stadium. So I think even though we've seen the line come down a little bit on the total here from 55 to 53, I do think the over probably about the only thing you can look at in that Thursday night game. The Saturday games, you did a video for us over on our ATS YouTube page. I encourage everybody to check that out. But what do you think about your Bills here laying a pretty healthy number, 6.5 or 7 on the road at Denver with a total going up, now sitting 50?
Yeah, it's tough because, the way the Bills are playing, it's tough to go against them. But here's the thing. You played the Steelers on a Sunday night, and you've got New England, even though the division's in the cookie jar, or New England's out of it, you've got another game with New England coming up, and the Bills have run a mini gauntlet. But if it weren't for the Hail Murray thing, and it pains me to even just say it because it has a name, when things have a name, it usually happened against the Bills.
Or the Browns.
Yeah, but I mean, go back and look what these guys have done. And I can't win for losing, right? I mean, I didn't play the Bills. I played the Bills on the side against the Steelers. And I played the total in the Niners game. I'm trying to think. The last time I bet the Bills on the side, I think, was the Seahawks game. And so I always, you pick Buffalo. I hate people when they just like, really, give me an ounce of credit here. I mean, I watch every play of these guys, but I don't bet them blindly. But if you throw the Hail Murray thing out, they should have won, what are we now talking, 7 in a row. And the loss, and then they had lost 2 in a row. And it was an ugly game, but they had a chance to get the ball back and win against Kansas City. And they lost at Tennessee in that COVID nonsense when Tennessee was mad at the world. But the thing is, no one remembers that in week 4, Josh Allen was going nuts and he's in the MVP discussion. He popped his shoulder out in the game against the Raiders. He got knocked out of the game, had to go to the locker room. And he came back and finished the game, and they beat the Raiders. The next 3 weeks, he was wearing a brace. He was hurt. Allen played hurt in the games they lost. And look what he's doing again. He's healthy again. Their defense is getting healthy with Milano and Edmonds. Look out, man. They're playing really good. That being said, this is kind of a quirky spot. Denver's feeling good. Locke had a good game last week. I get a funny feeling Locke comes back to earth. Short week. I think it's under. I think it'll be close, but I think the total's a touch on the high side here. I think the Bills will force turnovers with Locke. I don't see Locke, having another 4 touchdown game. And I think the Bills have a little letdown spot here after that big win against the Steelers. So I think the numbers may be getting out of control here. What did it open, 5? And we're the way it's going, it's going to get to 7. I wouldn't be laying 7. That's for doggone sure. I think under 50 is the way to go.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the total going up a little bit in this one, just because the weather forecast in Denver doesn't look bad. Sunny skies, mid-40s, and the altitude factor where there is an adjustment for a quarterback because the ball will travel a little bit further in altitude. But Josh Allen played at Wyoming, which is the highest elevation in Division I college football. Of course, played in the Mountain West Conference. He's plenty accustomed to playing in altitude. I'm sure it'll be something that comes back to him pretty easily. And he's been exceptional in games where the weather hasn't been a factor. So I understand and agree with the line going up a little bit. What's hard for me is figuring out the side, because it is in a great spot for Buffalo. Yeah. They are getting healthy, but they've played, as you said, a pretty tough schedule of late. They've got the New England game next week. They've got that cushion in the division right now, so they've got a little bit of margin for error. I just don't know if I want to take Denver here because, as you said, Locke could turn the football over. And if Locke turns the football over and we're suddenly starting to get a little bit of a higher scoring expectation with that total moving up, the implication would be if Locke turns it over, Buffalo turns it into points. So if the Bills get extra possessions out of this game, that's how they cover the 6.5. So again, probably not a game that I'm going to have too much action on, but I think it's a very intriguing handicap in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and then one more case for the under, though, and I would just say this. Denver had gone under the total 4 games in a row before the game against the Panthers. And at altitude, I think the Bills, focus will be a little bit of a thing for them. And I think McDermott does a good job. But again, it's a letdown spot. Buffalo's got this kid flies under the radar. Borkowitz, the punter. I mean, these are moonshots this guy kicks. And at altitude, I think he'll be changing field position, and I think there are going to be a lot of long drives required from both teams because I think Denver's defense is pretty good. I just have a weird feeling. And the other thing I could see, and I think you've got to at least consider these kind of things when you're handicapping games. Buffalo wants to win, but basically say you're going to win the division. And they're in great shape, obviously, to do that. But they've got to get the running game going. And I wonder if they don't make that the focal point of this game is to get their running game going. And, they'll do whatever the defense is going to give them. Well, you're now to the point where Josh Allen is slinging it all over creation. So I think teams are going to start playing nickel and dime defense against them all the time. And I think it's imperative that they get Singletary and Moss going. And I think they come in here with running the football as the game plan. That's what they did against New England. It was the one game this year where the running game won the game. And I think that'll be their focus coming in. And then the other thing you got to look forward to, I believe this, once teams are locked in, say the Bills win this game and the division's like secure. I mean, I'm considering maybe not playing guys more than a half in week 16 and week 17. And say they've got the division one before the Dolphins get there at the end. If I'm the Bills, Matt Barkley may be starting the game. I think you're going to see a lot of teams because and I had a friendly argument with some guys on Twitter saying, the seeding. And I'm like, seeding? What's the difference? If you're the 3 seed, what's the difference between playing Tennessee, Indianapolis, or Baltimore? Really, what's the difference? So to me, with no fans and where you play them, I don't care. There are no fans at these games. So I think a lot of teams are going to be resting guys in week 16 and week 17. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility across the board here. And speaking of across the board, we look at Sunday. We talked about Jacksonville, Baltimore, and Cleveland and the Giants already. We'll definitely talk Kansas City, New Orleans as a huge game here this week. But as far as anything else on the card for Sunday or the awful Monday nighter between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, what else are you kind of looking at here in week 15?
Well, I'm convinced, and this is a bet of today, I'm convinced this gets to 3. It's sitting at 2.5. San Francisco at Dallas. Listen, Andy Dalton was going back to Cincinnati. So even though it's a dog's breakfast in Dallas, they played hard for Andy Dalton, and the Bengals can't get out of their own way, through no fault of their own with injuries. So Dallas beat Cincinnati. San Francisco, now they could walk in here immensely deflated. The season was a wash, with the injuries. I thought they were going to regress to begin with, and I can't even say I was right because it was nothing more than injuries. But I think if San Francisco comes in here mad at the world, that they felt like they'd gotten back in the thing and now they're out of it again, I could see them pumping Dallas. That Dallas defense is a disaster. Cincinnati can't get a first down. I think this number gets to 3. for sure. So I like San Fran. I'm betting them today.
Yeah, and that's one too. San Francisco last week gave up 2 defensive touchdowns. Nick Mullins was awful in that game against Washington.
But isn't he Jekyll and Hyde though?
Oh yeah.
You watch some of these games, bud, and he throws to Ayuk and he throws to Samuel or what. I mean, there are some games that I got to know where he's got awful, and then the next week he goes and he throws for 350.
Yeah, and I sort of kind of wonder about Dallas and where their mindset kind of is right now, where they had the really tough Thanksgiving game with the passing of Marcus Paul. And then you just sort of wonder, like, they've given McCarthy allegedly a vote of confidence and said, well, we're not making any changes. And the players were very vocal about not really liking Mike McCarthy, not feeling like they were prepared for games, all that kind of thing early on in the season. Maybe last week was just a function of the fact that Cincinnati right now is on the level of the New York Jets. So I think it's fair to make that argument. I'm kind of looking over a little bit in the game. I think that Dallas has got some skill position talent that can shine against a lot of different defenses, even though San Francisco is a pretty good one. But I agree with you. This side definitely appears to be going to 3, and I don't think it'll come back down off of it.
And then Washington and the current form thing, real quick. It's funny. When you say the ability to look ahead, I'm in a fantasy league. Are you in fantasy?
No.
You hate it?
No, I don't have time for it.
Well, I mean, it can be worth your while. Depends the league you're in.
Can be.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it depends what you're playing for. But honestly, the fantasy thing to me helps me with handicapping, and because I'm watching games that are technically over, even in relation to the spread, but not in the fantasy. And I made a move in the league I'm in. Is you draft a team, but you're not drafting their defense. You're drafting a team, and you get the points they win by, and you have to handicap the team. You have to say, I'm playing this team to win, or I'm playing this team to lose. So if you pick a team to win and they lose by 17, you lose 17 points. So you better get it right. It's an important thing. And about 6 weeks ago, I picked up Seattle, even though I wasn't playing Seattle for weeks down the road, knowing that they had the Jets, the Redskins, and the Giants on their schedule. So I actually won the week, which is well worth winning this week. I won the week because Seattle won by 37. It helped me win the week with all the side stuff that's going on. So I've got a real rooting interest for Seattle to do it again. And this was my plan way back when. And Seattle is motivated, and everybody's loving this Washington thing. And rightly so. Their defense is terrific. But Seattle's defense is getting better. Since they got Dunlap, and Jamal Adams is going nuts. And Wilson just hit a wall. He was like, what's going on with him? Well, okay, I know it was the Jets, and everybody's going to shoot holes in it that it was the Jets. But I wonder if, you look at Washington, the teams they've been shutting down. They beat the Redskins, or they beat the Cowboys, right, on Thanksgiving Day. All right, Andy Dalton, he is not a mobile quarterback. They beat last week Mullins. They get 2 defensive touchdowns, but they couldn't score themselves. And everybody's in love with Washington right now. I'm wondering if that number is way lower than it should be. And I wonder if Wilson's mobility will create some big plays that Seattle gets out in front in this game, and you force Alex Smith to do more than dink and dunk. And I'm wondering, Washington can win the game outright, but there's just something telling me if Seattle gets in front here and gets away from them and forces Washington to be one-dimensional, that this might not be a game that gets away from Washington.
Yeah, this line has gone up a little bit. It was 4.5 early in the week. Now pretty much painted 6 across the market here. I want to ask you about this New England and Miami game real quick, with Miami laying just 2.5, total 41.5, very low total here. Belichick going up against former defensive coordinator Brian Flores. New England, we know what they're trying to do offensively. Some weeks they can do it, some weeks they can't. you would think being able to run the football would take Miami's really good secondary, at least out of the equation to a degree here in this game. But I think a lot of people are going to look at this line and think it looks really cheap. But at the same time, there has been some New England support early in the week here.
Okay, I don't see any way to look at this game other than play the under. And by the way, how many weeks ago, Adam, I don't know if you've archived these things, we nailed this one. And that is with New England, you don't know what you're going to get, but you can sit there and rack up dough betting them at halftime. We've said this 9 weeks ago. You could see it. If they're ahead, play them because they got control of the game. Belichick's dialed something up good defensively, and New England can play with the lead. If New England's behind, Newton ain't bringing them back. So, you got halftime, you just jump in. If New England's ahead, play them. If they're behind, fade them. And it's been a license to print money. But if you want to draw a parallel, it's look what Belichick did to Justin Herbert, a rookie quarterback. Belichick's going to dial something up here, and it's going to frustrate the Tua kid. And I just see maybe they move the ball between the 20s, both teams. But that Dolphins defense is terrific. If Newton doesn't produce instant points for Miami's defense, the field goal kickers are going to be real busy in this game.
Yeah, I think that's a good handicap there. Not a lot of sides I like this week. Quite a few totals I like, which doesn't really help me for the Circus Sports Million here. But one last one, and this one is moving as we're recording here. Kansas City and New Orleans, and there appears to be someone with some pretty decent influence in the betting market out there that likes New Orleans in this game. It's come off of 4. It's down to 3.5. And in fact, Pinnacle, which is one of the sharpest of the global books, all the way down to 3 now with Kansas City, a road favorite against New Orleans, total 51.5. Somebody out there likes the Saints, Brian.
Well, why not? I mean, this, honestly, we say this, every year there's a game or two, but I mean, there's a real opportunity for this to be a Super Bowl preview. I mean, KC's everybody's favorite, and New Orleans and Green Bay seem to be the class of the NFC. So this could be a Super Bowl preview. And the difference being is if they played in the Super Bowl, it's going to be Drew Brees at quarterback, not Taysom Hill. Now, my understanding was, unless something's happened in the last little bit, that they weren't rushing Brees back and it's going to be Taysom Hill. But I wonder if this money, if any word out there that maybe there's something about Brees coming back. But either way,
that's what I was just looking at. Said he might return to practice this week. Is what?
Oh, there you go. Okay, I mean, see, we're dumb, but we're not stupid. I mean, so maybe there's indications that Brees is going to play. I honestly, in this particular instance, if Brees returned, I'd be less inclined to play the Saints. I think it stands to reason he's got to shake off some rust. Yeah, hey, Drew Brees is coming back. Okay, well, he couldn't stretch the field to begin with. And by the way, Taysom Hill is the guy that's got Michael Thomas involved in the offense again. And Hill's got some limitations, throwing it downfield, but he's been terrific, and give Peyton credit. By the way, this is the most resilient team in football. I mean, all these grisly losses they had in the playoffs, at some point you say, enough. They keep coming. They're the closest thing. I mean, it's a remarkable thing. I mean, they're the closest thing I've ever seen to the Bills, the team that went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row and lost, and they're a punchline, which is a sin because that will never happen again. But they just had something about them where they were willing to. They just kept coming back for more, and we got to try to finish this thing. New Orleans, with back-to-back years, they had the Diggs thing, right, where they got their heart ripped out, and then they had the pass interference thing against the Rams, and those were teams capable of winning the Super Bowl, and they never pouted or anything. They just come back and let's do it again. I mean, this New Orleans team is the most resilient team we've seen in the last 10 years.
A lot of good NFL thoughts here on today's show with Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. And Brian, how can people check out those two shows of yours?
All right, bud. So KSHP.com, we get the listen live function is always there. My Twitter at Brian Blessing, we archive all this stuff. And we're on the Sports Grid Radio Network now. I added an extra hour that Mr. Burke will be on today. So from 11, let's see, 2 to 4 Eastern time and 11 to 1 Pacific time, we're on the Sports Grid Radio Network. So you can get at that at sportsgrid.com. And then on January 7th, we'll be on Sirius Channel 204. So that'll be pretty cool. And then if you're a hockey fan, we're waiting. It's got to happen today, tomorrow, the next. The clock's ticking, kids. If you think you're starting January 13th and you don't make an announcement today or tomorrow, that ain't happening. But we do Vegas Hockey Hotline with great guests from around the hockey world. We had Doc Emmerich on last week. We get great guests. And if you're a hockey fan, I think you'll like that. That's Vegas Hockey Hotline, and that is from 1 to 2 Pacific time at KSHP.com.
Always great to chat with Brian Blessing. Again, Sportsbook Radio, Vegas Hockey Hotline, the two programs you can hear him on, as well as hearing him here every Tuesday on ATS Radio, at Brian Blessing on Twitter. Brian, appreciate the time as always, man. Thank you so much. Get warmed up before you and I record your show, and we'll talk to you again next week.
I'm not going to get warm, but I am going to heat up the coffee.
There you go. Thanks,
bud. But we'll tell you, we look forward to having you on the show today. That's when we finish this, we're starting another one.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Once again, that's Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline, Sports Grid Radio Network, sportsbookradio.com, KSHP.com to hear more of Brian's content. Coming up on our Wednesday edition of ATS Radio, we'll chat with professional bettor and handicapper Kyle Hunter from HunterSportsPicks.com. Half college football, half college basketball on tomorrow's show. Thursday, Brad Powers will talk college football and the NFL. Friday, my Circus Sports Million picks for Week 15. That'll do it for me. Thank you so much for listening, everybody, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.